Hello, everybody. It's Lachlan here, and I'm joined with my co-host in person live
Yeah.
here from Phoenix, Arizona, with another second installment of an in-person fantasy cast, which is great.
Ever.
Yeah, we did one around this time last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great to have you. Explain why and like how you're here, because it's pretty crazy in the first place.
Yeah, it's weird. Well, first of all, we haven't done an episode in about 2 weeks, I think. We've both been extremely busy, so we apologize for that. But I bet you didn't expect this. Like just me randomly being in Arizona. I got a weekend off of work and it's been very busy times, but I really wanted to take a little trip somewhere. So I figured why not visit one of my best friends to come see him in Arizona. And we're here for also a very special reason. The Chargers are in town to play the Cardinals. We're going to an NFL game, so you're going to have like a live check-in from the fantasy cast at an NFL game. But it's been wonderful so far, and I'm really, really happy to be here.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing nothing but I mean, my parents are in town as well, which is always cool. Um, but we've been going around different restaurants. We've been hitting up Tempe a little bit.
Yeah.
Went to the hockey game last night, and I think you had a lot of fun at that game.
That was one of the craziest experiences. I mean, it was so cool, but then we saw Michigan go live.
Yeah. So for all the hockey fans out there, I know it's a football podcast, but all the hockey fans out there, we saw Friday night Minnesota Golden Gophers versus Arizona State. Logan Cooley, third overall by the Coyotes last year, pulled to Michigan and left us speechless.
It was crazy. And for those of you who don't know what that is, look it up because just explaining it doesn't do it justice. But essentially, when the player lifts the puck up, the stick in midair, turns around and fires it over his shoulder for a goal. And that's literally like a 1 in a million play.
Yeah, well, I said to you probably like 5,000 times that like that's the best goal I've ever seen live and will see in a while. But yeah,
crazy.
We're going back again to Mullet Arena tonight
Mm-hmm.
for the second of this weekend series versus the Golden Gophers, number 2 ranked Golden Gophers, I might add.
ASU held their own though.
Yeah, they lost last night, but yeah, and we're going to we're going to the Cardinals game tomorrow, which is it's gonna be so much fun. We're gonna have some surprise content for you guys coming from that game later.
Yeah.
Those of you who know our previous work before the fantasy cast might know what to expect from the both of us at an NFL tailgate. But yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun and a bit of a different structure for the episode today. But I hope you guys like it, since we haven't done an episode in a couple of weeks, and again we apologize for that. Both of us schedules just didn't quite line up, so it is what it is, but we're glad to be here.
So glad to be here. And yeah, like you said, it's a bit of a truncated episode, but we wanted to give you guys like just quick, fast pointers, stuff to do this week, and some predictions and whatnot. But it should be good, especially because we're closing in on fantasy playoffs. So hopefully this advice can be valuable to some of you. And we don't like to be obvious here at the Fantasy Cast. So you're going to be hearing stuff not like, oh, start Travis Kelce or start Devontae Adams, who both had like 30 in the last 3 games. So we're gonna give you some actual good content, starting with 3 players to start, 3 players to sit, a defense to start, and 1 player. We've never done this before, by the way. 1 player we guarantee will have over 20 points.
Yeah, which is a big ask of certain players, and this player especially too is a little bit off the board. You'll see.
Yeah.
But again, we try to keep it a little bit unconventional because we want to give you guys better in-depth advice for guys that you wouldn't expect to pop off per se.
Exactly. And people who you might have on your bench right now, it could be a fantasy winner this week, and therefore like a playoff, someone who gets you into the playoffs. So why don't you start us off, since we're in your home state actually right now?
Yeah, literally. And for those of you who are running the jerseys in the background, so this is like literally my room here at Arizona State University. And usually I'm facing the other way, so usually you'll see like the Step Brothers poster in the background. Like we're literally like looking at them, and like the Arizona State flag that my roommate has and whatnot. Since it's US Thanksgiving weekend, it's like a ghost town here.
Yeah.
Like there's like no one in this building right now. It's crazy. But yeah, like usually all the jerseys you see behind me are what I have on my side of the room. So
we're still in the same room though.
Oh yeah, exact same room. But yeah, we're started off. Our first player to start here is Canadian Josh Palmer, who we will be seeing live tomorrow. And he's had an interesting season because
Yeah.
the Chargers have not been healthy
No,
at all in any position, offense or defense.
tell me about it.
He said 14, 18, and 7 and 30. He had a nice 30 bomb last week. I
Yeah.
really appreciated that.
Versus
And
Kansas City.
yeah,
No, that's
and
good.
again, Mike Williams out again this week.
Yeah.
Keenan Allen hasn't quite been the number one
No,
to Justin Herbert.
although we haven't even, I'm not even sure if this is guaranteed yet, but like he was on limited snap count last week.
Yeah.
So this week he might be full throttle again, but regardless, they had the two top receivers full throttle last week, even though Mike Williams went early, and Josh still had 30
Yeah,
with 2 touchdowns.
yeah. So it'll be interesting to see matchup wise what the Cardinals do to scheme against this offense, because obviously Eckler's a great pass catch threat as
Sure.
well out of the backfield. But yeah, and I think thank you again for dropping Josh Palmer. I'm always on him because he was
Yeah.
the one who dropped Josh Palmer in our league, and I picked him up, and I've been loving him.
I just don't know why I did it too. Looking back, I like no recollection of, maybe I needed a defense that week or something.
Yeah.
I really don't know. But looking back, I don't love that. But and we also, I mean, a little bit biased, but we had to start a player that we're gonna go see.
Yeah.
So when this guy catches 4 touchdowns tomorrow, we'll be
Yeah.
on the fantasy cast being like,
Yeah,
we told you. But
exactly.
well, we hope so. Our next player is someone who I actually love, and I picked up in one of my other leagues, is Christian Watson. He's wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, and he's been doing phenomenal.
Yeah,
This kid has 5 touchdowns in his last 2 games, believe it or not.
that's crazy.
And he did nothing before.
No,
Like absolutely nothing.
and it's funny because one of my friends actually down the hall, he's a big Packers guy.
Mhm.
And I remember the game, I forget who it was against, but when Christian Watson dropped that bomb,
Yeah.
the long bomb from Aaron Rodgers, and he dropped it.
Yeah.
And like he's the rookie wide receiver this year, so he was pretty mad, and he gets pretty animated when Christian Watson doesn't do well. So then finally, when he caught his first touchdown,
It's about time.
he was pretty ecstatic. So I'm sure he'll be happy about this pick, no doubt.
Absolutely. But that was a great point too. Like this guy, well, he didn't do anything towards the beginning portion of the season, and he dropped open passes. He got a lot of flack for that. The whole Packers receiving core.
He was in tough, and
Yeah.
and obviously the Packers receiving core is not the same without
The
Devontae,
Adams.
but
Not at all. But Watson's been phenomenal. As
Yeah.
mentioned, 5 touchdowns. He had 32 and 21 in his last 2 games, which is phenomenal. He had 3 touchdowns the first week, 2 touchdowns last week. The hardest part about this start is he's facing Philadelphia. But
Yeah.
that being said, Rodgers is still a good player. Green Bay they've gotten the ball moving on offense a lot more. And it's likely that he will eclipse that 12-point threshold, if not a lot more.
plus Philly, I don't know. Philly's a strange team for me because I remember you and I were talking about this, like with injuries and whatnot. Philly's like one of the healthiest, if not the healthiest
Team in the NFL.
in the league
Yep.
based on injuries. And I think you were saying the Chargers are
Dead last.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right.
But I think, the way Philly plays on defense, especially, they're very, very hard nosed in your face.
Yes.
I hate to say it, they're bound to have something happen on that, either D line or something that could really impact their season. They already have a loss to their belt too.
Absolutely. Commanders came in. They
which was
almost
big,
lost
yeah.
to the Colts as well.
So against this Green Bay team, you never know if Green Bay just puts a couple decent drives together.
Yeah.
Like you never know if that offense is going to struggle that day. So
For sure.
definitely a strange one.
Yeah, it's a strange one, but we think we like him. And I honestly think he'll do very well. Very exciting player to watch too. Very enjoyable. You see, if you've been watching Red Zone, this guy's all over Red Zone.
Yeah.
Recently. So
Yes.
it's great. All right.
Absolutely. Next one on Cleveland, it's Donovan Peoples-Jones, the former Michigan star wide receiver. Speaking of which, we're recording as the second half is probably going, so we have no clue what the score in that game is.
No, but it's very exciting so far.
Anyway, Donovan Peoples-Jones is a start versus Tampa this week. 11, 11, 12, 14, and 17 in his last 4 games. We've talked about this before we recorded here. He's been one of the most consistent players in fantasy football to get you like double-digit points.
For sure. Not consistently fantastic, but like just a consistent start if you need points to get you points. Peoples-Jones has been doing that. He's only had like 2 weeks below 11, I think. So he's been phenomenal. Tampa Bay, the only thing is they're good defense, obviously.
Yeah, but like it's weird. Like as a Falcons guy, like the playoff race is still very much
alive
on, and that they're like a sub 500 mediocre team in any other division.
Yeah,
but the Bucks just on paper they're one of the best teams in the league
for sure.
One of the best defenses in the league.
Still got a good defense, obviously, but like it really helps too for this matchup that the Browns are at home for this.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is Deshaun Watson.
Actually, we don't know that. Well, regardless, obviously
Ooh.
up until this point, it's been Jacoby Brissett. Sorry, not Jacoby Brissett. Yeah, Jacoby Brissett,
Yeah.
who's been doing just fine for them. Like, not
Yeah.
fantastic, but he's been doing an all right job, especially in terms of getting the balls to his wide receivers. Like Amari Cooper's been actually pretty good as of late. But if Deshaun does play, that's even a bigger plus.
Yeah.
Like, or a bigger upside, I should say. But regardless, those are our 3 starts for this week. We really, really like these guys. Palmer, of course, we'll give you live updates perhaps on him during the game. Christian Watson and Donovan Peoples-Jones. So we're going to move on to our 3 sits now. And this first one is a guy who actually I really liked early on in the year, and then he kind of started cooling down. It's Zay Jones of the Jaguars, but they're playing Baltimore, and that's part of the reason why. He's had 6, 9, and 14 in his last 3. He's been very inconsistent. Like, he did get like 24 earlier in the year, so he could have big games, but he's very inconsistent. Baltimore has a strong defense, and I mean,
there's also a lot of wideouts to go around on Jacksonville.
And Christian Kirk's been phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, they paid him big money for a reason. I mean,
Yeah.
he was phenomenal in Arizona the season prior, but they also, Marvin Jones,
Yep.
Zay Jones as well. Like, there's
Yeah.
a lot of receivers in that depth chart. It's kind of it's hard to find your way consistently throughout the season there.
100%. But yeah, he's our first sit versus Baltimore.
Next sit here, we're gonna go with DJ Moore
Mhm.
of the Panthers. They're hosting the Broncos this week. We've talked about this before, but I'll get to this after. 4, 6, and 5 in his last 3. Not a good QB situation whatsoever. It's
it's not his fault. That's why
it's not his fault,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate. But it's not looking great versus in Carolina in general. I thought they could maybe turn it around.
Yeah.
I thought Sam Darnold was going to be good for them. Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah. Well, I
thought Baker was going to be good. And
wrong.
Man.
Well, PJ Walker did have one really good game against the Falcons, actually.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what happened since. He forgot that he's not playing for the Houston Roughnecks anymore. And he's in the NFL. So it got tougher for him. But yeah, it's too bad. Like, because DJ Moore's so great.
Yeah, he really is a great receiver. I mean,
and he also has, a little bit of more competition now, like Terrence Marshall, who, by the way, next year I think is going to be an absolute star. I mean, this kid's like a big physical receiver who just doesn't get the targets that he deserves.
No.
So once they figure out a quarterback situation, or Terrence Marshall gets better, he'll be a lot better. You'll see. I really think he could be one of the best, like, top 10 receivers in the NFL if given the chance. But Moore is a little bit of competition, but that's not the worry. The worry is the quarterback situation.
Yeah, but as well, I alluded to this earlier, but the Denver defense, they have not been given the credit
that they deserve.
Because I think you said this as well. If the Broncos scored 16 points every game, they'd be 17 or 7-2.
Yeah, they'd have between 6 and 8 wins this year.
That's
and we're talking about just 16 points.
Yeah,
literally a 2-score game. Literally 2 scores. On 2 scores, you can have 16 points. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, so 2 touchdowns and a field goal.
Yeah.
And you're at 17, and
absolutely.
That's all you got to do to
or even
win 7
2 touchdowns and 2 extra point conversion. Or two
and this is why, like, everyone was saying that the Broncos were going to be such a good team this year, was because with the addition of Russell Wilson, obviously Javonte Williams before he was injured for the season, and they have 2 great wideouts in Sutton and Judy. There's no reason why the offense couldn't put it together with Russell Wilson at the helm. Absolutely. And their defense was already looking really, really good.
Yeah. Their defense is absolutely phenomenal, and they've been phenomenal this year. Actually, very, very good. Even going back to the game, they played the Chargers. The Chargers won like 16-13 in that game, I think.
Oh, that overtime was painful.
So bad.
No one wanted the ball in overtime. No. That was ridiculous.
But that was crazy. But like you said, Denver's been phenomenal. That's also one of the reasons we want to sit DJ Moore. And Surtain might be one of the best cornerbacks the NFL's ever seen. If he plays like this throughout his entire career.
He's really taken charge and really fit into his own lately in the league, which you love to see.
Surtain, Simmons, they got so many great players on that Denver defense. Moving on to our third one and our final sit, Deontay Johnson at Indianapolis, obviously Pittsburgh wide receiver. Being kind of weird this year.
Yeah, as a fantasy owner of Deontay Johnson, I touted him quite high coming into the season. Under Trubisky, great. As soon as Kenny Pickett got in, he just didn't throw the ball his way at all. Like, he just wasn't getting any kind of decent targets in any game, and that's why I was lucky enough to get George Pickens.
Pickens has been phenomenal.
But all of a sudden, Kenny Pickett comes in and George Pickens his stock just skyrockets because he was just getting the ball more than Deontay.
Yeah.
But coming into the season, I mean, Deontay Johnson was supposed to be a very, very elite wide receiver in fantasy
Absolutely.
football.
And he was last year,
Yeah,
like
and
to the
he
latter
was
half of
great
last year.
because he was just a target machine.
Yeah.
Like it's not the touchdowns wouldn't really come as much for him.
Mm.
It was just that he would like catch 9 passes in a
Yeah.
game. Like that's
No, he was like a
Yeah.
legitimate problem. Like legitimate problem. And it's too bad he's not doing or putting up the same numbers this year. But as you mentioned, too, it's not entirely his fault. It's the targets. But he's had 8, 9, 8, 10, and 6 in his last 5. So he's only gotten double digits once and barely eclipsed that. And he's playing Indianapolis, who have been playing a lot better. Like I mentioned a bit earlier in the episode, they competed with the Eagles and almost beat the Eagles.
Yeah, they the Colts have been looking a little bit better. It
Yeah.
might be it could be almost too little too late.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, they're very much in the playoff race right now.
They very much are, but if they take one slip, it could be the end for them.
For sure.
And
Very,
then
very
I
true.
wonder what happens with the likes of Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor if they
Yeah.
don't reach the wild card game this year
Yeah.
of some sort. I wonder what happens with their situations if they're just going to be unhappy there, which
Yeah.
would suck for that team because I think they're good enough to be a playoff team for sure. But
Absolutely. And their defense certainly on paper is strong enough. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of their guys like that Bobby Okereke, or however you say, I've heard it
I
pronounced
think
differently.
I think that's actually how you pronounce
I think
it.
it's Okereke,
I think
but
you nailed that.
but he's like leading. He's one of the leaders in tackles. I mean, DeForest Buckner is phenomenal. I mean, they have so many good players, but their defense is still really good. And Johnson's a tough matchup, playing, of course, at Indianapolis. So we like that. So Zay Jones, DJ Moore, and Deontay Johnson are 3 sits. And we have one defense for you today. Walk, who's the defense?
Yeah, I mean, sucks that I'm saying this, but it's the Commanders defense. They've been on fire. They've had 15 and 19 in their past 2 games.
Yeah.
A
This is
much
the start, by the way. Defense to start.
a much improved Commanders defense. Starting to turn the corner a little bit. It feels like some teams are just starting to hit their stride
Mhm.
later on in the year. They needed a few weeks to just figure it out. And the Falcons also been weird offensively.
Mhm.
Like I know we were talking about Cordero and his involvement in the offense, and
Yeah.
now that Kyle Pitts is getting surgery and
Yes.
likely out for the rest of the year.
Probably, which is too bad.
And they just refuse to throw the ball to Drake London.
Yeah. I mean, he's
Yeah.
catching touchdowns sporadically, but getting no targets down the
No,
stretch.
it's I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
I have no clue what's happening there.
So it's
And
it's
you know,
very
I
strange.
mean, I think that Commanders D line will pose problems, especially if there's not a lot of wide receivers on the depth chart that can get open.
100%.
So I think it could be sack territory for them.
Yeah, sack territory, touchdown return territory, interception territory. We're looking at everything there. By the way, robbery of the week last week, Cordero Patterson runs back a ball for
Oh,
like
yeah.
108 yards, gets credited for the touchdown,
But not
But
the yards.
not the yards. And we were talking, that's like what, a 16, 17 point play?
His return touchdown theoretically should be a 17-point play.
Yeah.
But the problem is that you would get those points if you had the Falcon special teams.
Yes.
But that is one of the weird things, but like we think PPR fantasy leagues
Yep.
are absolutely the way to go in
Yep.
every regard. But that's potentially one of the downfalls
Yes.
of PPR, which makes sense because I can't think of a lot of other kick returners that are also their number one running back and a good receiver option as well. Like Cordero is a very like special
For sure.
piece.
But that's one thing too.
Yeah.
Like if they did change the rules for that, that would change the way fantasy football played. If you looked at it from return and stuff, return
Yeah.
yards as well, you would like Cordero would not be a 9th round pick. Cordero would be
No,
a
because
4th round pick.
because he returns every kick and he would get X amount. Like if he returns every kick, well, I mean, not a lot of kicks are actually like fielded and returned anymore. It's
Yeah, no,
they
for
mostly
sure.
just go to the end zone.
But it's more like it's a select few players that can
Yeah.
do that. But regardless, they're like utility players who kind of play like a Taysom Hill role.
yeah, well, Taysom Hill's another cheat code in
Exactly.
PPR.
So it would be like a cheat code to an extent, but I don't know. I thought like as for someone who had Cordero on his team, and I did win last week, but still that pissed me off that my player did so well and they just didn't. Oh, that was kind of upsetting. But regardless, Cordero hasn't been as much involved in the offense other than that return touchdown. So we like the Commanders defense this week to put up at least 6 points.
Yeah, that's lock.
Finally, our last part before our fantasy question of the week, which it's a little bit of a special one. We have one player that we're guaranteeing over 20, and it's Geno Smith. you
Yeah,
alluded to before.
surprise. I mean, you bet you didn't expect us to say his name for this question.
Yeah, but Gino's been very, very, and once again, we could have said Travis Kelce or Devontae Adams, but
Nope.
why do that?
Geno Smith.
Geno Smith, because we want to give you someone who you might actually be debating starting. And Geno Smith's playing Vegas this week. Vegas has been a dumpster fire the entire year.
That's tough.
And someone in the AFC West, like I love to see them do bad, but I also like it's fun to see them play well also because it helps with the rivalry, and it's better to play good teams sometimes. I might regret that in the future if Vegas gets really, really good recently, but Vegas has not been good whatsoever. But Geno's had 19, 21, and 19 again in his last 3, so he's had 19 2 of those times. He's had games this year over 3 total touchdowns. He's had over 30, but we like it because they're coming off the bye week.
Yeah, which I think was good for them just to hit the reset button a little bit. And I think Geno will be coming in with a bit of a fresh attitude, fresh mindset in this game. And again, Vegas's defense, nothing to write home about, really.
No,
so
not at all. Literally not at all.
I think the Seahawks can put up a good offensive showing in that game for sure.
Absolutely. So that concludes like the portion part of our episode, but we're going to do one final thing before we leave on this truncated episode of the Fantasy Cast, the Arizona special. Lachlan, I have a proposal to you, and I want you to act as sort of like a league commissioner in a sense here. I'm going to propose an idea around the sport of fantasy football, and you tell me, it just got to be a yes or no answer.
Yeah.
If you would implement that into fantasy leagues. And a sneak peek, I did mention these the other day. This is in the script, by the way. This is completely going off the script.
Yeah,
and it's something
I'm on script here. I know exactly what I'm going to say,
but this is going to be interesting. And it's an interesting question for all you at home. Should fantasy football include offensive lines?
I think yes.
And let me go over my reasoning why. There's a couple reasons. One, it is literally the one part of the game that's so crucial to football. And obviously I'm biased because I was a lineman for 4 years, but
still running back, but like Derrick Henry doesn't run for over 1,000 yards already without his O-line.
Absolutely. So they're the one part of all of football that is not acknowledged within fantasy football, because obviously there's defense and special teams. In some leagues too, there's defensive players specifically where you can draft defensive players, nothing to do with offensive linemen. And I get it because there's not really statistics for offensive line. But there can be if you take them as like if you start defense or special teams, there should be a thing in fantasy football where you could start offensive lines, and it could actually be like a make or break type thing. If you draft an offensive line and their running back, they should get points for the following: how many points their running backs have, how many yards or touchdowns their running backs have. Rushing touchdowns though, and rushing yards, of course, or screenplays, that should also be considered. Like the details are a bit shifty here.
Where I draw the line, I think I wouldn't do rushing yards per se. I would start them at 10 points, same as a defense.
Yes.
But for every sack, either they give up or any kind of offensive holding penalty.
Yes.
Like if there's a holding penalty on the offensive line, maybe take away half a point.
Yeah.
And for every sack, take away 2.
Yeah, for sure. That could be very cool.
Because some of those off or any offensive line false starts.
Yeah.
Any of those offside on the O line, any penalties on the offensive line and any sacks given up, I feel like could add just the extra element of fantasy football that it's interesting.
Yeah.
Because in any given, like, this really puts any O line in a good position, really.
No, absolutely. And you also take, and like you said, for the sacks, you get a point off for a sack. Maybe they get 1.4 if their quarterback throws a touchdown because of the pass protection,
Yeah, potentially.
So but that's something
I think that complicates it a little bit. I think the simple thing for me would be just start them at 10 points, 2 points off for a sack, half point or 1 point for every penalty against the offensive line. And go from there.
For sure.
I mean, there's obviously there has to be ways to gain points as well, but I feel like it'd be
through that would be either through the running back and specifically rushing plays or rushing touchdowns, or passing touchdowns from the quarterback would be the easiest way to measure that. But it's an interesting question to pose to you because I've never heard anyone talk about that before.
No,
if offensive lines,
when I remember you talked to me about that, and I was like, I've never heard anyone kind of say that before. That's interesting.
Yeah, but it's an interesting question to pose. Should offensive lines be in fantasy football? Because they could make an impact. It's the same as the defense, like literally for PPR leagues. So interesting, food for thought. Want to let you know, but let us know what you think. Anyways, this has been it for this episode of the Arizona special of the Fantasy Cast. We will check in with you tomorrow. live from Glendale, Arizona,
Oh God, yeah,
when the
yeah.
Chargers take on the Cardinals. And like Lachlan mentioned, we're gonna have some bonus content for you that will get out to you eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but as for tonight, I mean, for the rest of the day, we're gonna, I think, watch whatever is left of the Ohio State Michigan game, which we still don't know the score of,
Nope.
by the way. We like, I have no
Could be a
clue.
blowout. It could be the best college football
Yeah,
game of all
like
time.
Ohio State could have scored 4 straight touchdowns.
Yeah.
I don't even know. But we're going back to the mullet tonight, seeing the second of that weekend series. By the way, for everyone making fun of Mullet Arena and the Coyotes, you shouldn't, because it's great.
It's beautiful.
It's great.
Genuinely, like it's like a miniature NHL arena. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, and for all the students out there, the Coyotes offer $25 tickets for all students, as well as a student section at Coyotes games.
Yeah. And the Coyotes play there, for those of you who didn't know.
So I dare you to go to a Leafs game for $25. I dare you.
And sit 3 rows up.
I
Like,
dare you. You can't.
it's amazing.
But yeah, I'm first NFL game
Yeah.
tomorrow. I've been to a few college games, obviously with
Oh.
ASU, but
Yeah. But it was a tough
we're
one.
3-9 season this year for the Sun Devils.
And they just lost their rival game to U of A.
Yeah,
in
that was
Tucson.
that hurt. They were going forks down.
Yeah.
That really,
Bastards.
it's always funny when like you see like other schools do like horns down for
Yeah.
Texas. You're like, oh, what a bunch of losers. And then and then other teams do like forks down when what U of A's record was 4-7 this year.
Still horrible.
4-7.
like you have-
4-7.
You don't have the
4-8
right.
or something, and then we're 3-9.
Who gave you the right to do the
Yeah,
stupid?
and then they rushed the field in Tucson as well. So
Congrats, you beat a 3-9 team.
it was tough, but it was tough too because it was the Territorial Desert Cup,
For sure.
and we haven't lost that game since 2016. So
It's been a while.
yeah,
That's too bad. But things looking up for ASU. Always, like you said, don't roast Mullet Arena till you go there. It's amazing. Yeah, we'll check on you with the football game tomorrow. But we hope you guys enjoyed the smaller episode. We're having a blast down here in Arizona. We hope you surprised you. He's Lachlan. I'm Ty, and we'll see you next time on the Fantasy Cast.